This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV Prime. In association with Micromax. Nothing like anything.
It's Datsun's second product for the Indian market, the Go Plus MPV. Mercedes-Benz launching the promised CLA sedan. We have the review. And it's a special guest on CNB. We catch up with Henrik Fisker. Hi folks, welcome to a brand new episode. I'm Siddharth Vinayak Patankar. So we've got lots coming your way at the start of a brand new year. There are these new products that are going to continue to assault us in the market, and the year is starting off with a whole bunch of them. Now the Tata Bolt arrives a little bit later. You've also got the Mercedes-Benz CLA, which we will show you in just a bit. But then there's that Go Plus. It's an MPV, it's a 7-seater, and it's Datsun trying once again to get your attention in our market.
The hatch arrived with much fanfare, but is yet to make a mark in the Indian market, and now it's the turn of its sibling to drive in.
Yes, the face of the car is familiar, and no, it is not a rerun. You might have thought that it is the Datsun Go, but it isn't actually. Well, Datsun India had said that they will bring a longer version of the car. And well, with 7 seats, the Datsun Go Plus is just that.
The thought behind the Go Plus is very clear. A car that was similar in dimensions when compared to a hatchback, but could seat more people, and the people at Datsun have stuck to that brief. And yes, that is in line with the Ertiga idea. After all, 7-seater MPVs like these are big in Indonesia, another home market for the Datsun brand, you'll remember. The Go Plus is based on the same V platform as the previous Nissan Micra and the Go, but unlike that sibling, its C-pillar extends a bit, thus increasing its length by 210 mm. This extension means that there is a bit more space at the rear, and therefore the third row of seats too. Even though the car seems to target the Maruti Suzuki Ertiga directly, it will not be priced anywhere close to it. With the Go Plus, Datsun will become the first car manufacturer in India to create a segment of the subcompact MPV. Yes, it is below the sub 4 meter mark, just about actually, and that's what makes this an interesting proposition. That is food for thought, isn't it? The other difference is that Datsun doesn't claim the third row for adults and says it's for the kids. Smart. The interiors too see no change whatsoever when compared to the hatch. It's all the same. No music system, basic aircon functions, and the USB and aux-in deal. The second row, however, is much more comfortable, and it gives you a greater sense of space for sure. The engine too is a familiar one, and yes, it is carried over from the hatch, so it is indeed the all-aluminium 1.2-litre petrol mill producing 67 bhp. Even with the added weight of 20 kilograms, the engine is fairly responsive, and the 104 Newton-meter torque helps give the car some grunt. Like the hatch, the gear shifts aren't the smoothest, but the light steering and good power delivery make it an ideal city car. Noise insulation is lacking, and it is therefore an issue. There is a lot of road and tire noise that seeps into the cabin. Out on the open road, you realize that the car does roll a bit too, owing to the high ground clearance and the lack of anti-roll bars, Add to that very little grip from those rather slim 13-inch Strada tires, and yes, the ride is not the greatest. And then there is the safety aspect, or the lack thereof in feature terms. We brought you news about how the Datsun Go failed the global NCAP crash test, and it must be noted that the structural rigidity of the car had come under question.
After the Datsun Go failed the global NCAP crash tests, we thought it was time for a change, and that change would come with the Glow Plus. But sadly it hasn't. Even under safety and security features, there are things like child lock, engine immobilizer, and even central locking. No word of ABS and airbags. We asked the people at Datsun, what about ABS airbags and the structural rigidity of the car? Well, they said they will work on it. It's a step-by-step process. And ABS and airbags will come eventually. But that will also mean a hike in the price of the car. So we wait for A, India to be ready for such kind of safety features, and B, for Datsun India to come out with these in their cars.
It would seem that is a policy change from the government, and luckily we now know that is in the offing. We hope that it happens sooner rather than later. But despite this, and especially when compared to other existing entry price cars in India, you can't deny the fact that Datsun has been bold enough to take on the likes of Maruti Suzuki and Hyundai head on. And when compared to offerings like the Chevy Enjoy or Maruti Eco, the Go Plus will likely hold its own. And an MPV under the 4 metro mark will ensure that the car will attract lower taxes, and this in turn will have an effect on its price. There will be 4 variants on offer with prices starting from 4 lakh rupees, and we were also told that there are no plans as of now to bring out a diesel variant.
It is time for a short commercial break here on CNB, but we come back with that special chat with Henrik Fisker, and I'll also tell you why we are out here outside the city with these 2 cars. Stay tuned.
Mobil presents NDTV Car and Bike Awards 2015 in its 10th edition is giving you a chance to own your favorite bike. All you have to do is vote for the CNB Viewer's Choice Two-Wheeler of the Year. CNB 1, Bajaj Discover 150F. CNB 2, Hero Splendor iSmart. CNB 3, Honda Activa 125. CNB 4, Mahindra Gusto. CNB 5, Suzuki Gixxer. CNB 6, Suzuki Let's. CNB 7, TVS Scooty Zest. CNB 8, TVS Star City Plus. CNB 9, Vespa S. To vote, SMS CNB a space and your option to 56388 or log on to ndtv.com/CNB Awards. Win with CNB. Vote for the CNB Viewer's Choice Car of the Year. CNB 10, Datsun Go. CNB 11, Fiat Aventura. CNB 12, Honda City. CNB 13, Honda Mobilio. CNB 14, Hyundai i20. CNB 15, Maruti Suzuki Ciaz. CNB 16, Tata Zest. To vote, SMS CNB a space and your option to 56388 or log on to ndtv.com/CNB Awards. Win with CNB.
He hails from Denmark but has worked and lived in Germany, Monaco, the UK and USA, and now maybe he will add India to that list. Henrik Fisker is one of the world's most celebrated automobile designers who also had his own name brand cars in production until recently. He is in India to examine possible business opportunities, and he spoke exclusively to CNB.
Henrik Fisker, absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Great to be here.
Thank you for joining us today. Thanks for your time as well. It's great to have you here in India too. First things first, I want to start by, our viewers of course will want to know this as well. What brings you to India? You have a nice Indian connection which none of us knew of.
Well, my wife is from India, actually from New Delhi. So we like to come every year. Normally we like to come around Diwali, but this year we decided to come a little later. And I also love to come to India because I love Indian food. And I always find it interesting to kind of look at the Indian car market specifically, because first of all, there's some models you almost don't see anywhere else.
Let's take a look at these two cars. I mean,
Absolutely.
I don't want you to necessarily critique them from a design point of view, but what is it about you that, what is it about these cars that gets you? I mean, is there a specific element or a size or what?
Yeah, I think with this car, I think Ford has done an amazing job because it's very hard to design a small compact car and an SUV and also combine true sportiness with it. And I really think they've done that with this car. The proportions is very sporty. If you start with the front end, you know, they have really managed to create quite aggressive, sporty grille. The headlamps look slightly angry. So you get that good look that you want people to have in the rearview mirror. Please move out so I can get forward.
Yeah.
So it really
aggressive
says that. But they have also done something which is quite unique in this type of segment. They have a lot of plan view in the car, which kind of makes the car look very compact and sporty. And they have a lot of sculpture in the car, like this area here. So they have sort of combined some of the features that we tend to see on sedans and sports cars, with the strong plan views, sculpture around the hood area. So they have combined that into this SUV, which for me makes it look extremely modern and truly sporty, because SUV of course stands for sport utility vehicle, and many of them aren't really that sporty, but this car really is. Well, they obviously took a complete different direction in this. This has more, almost to me, a little bit of a retro feel of the sort of original Land Rovers, Toyota Land Cruisers. So they've obviously gone for a little more of the traditional SUV look, and with this of course you get the more massive feel. And you get the traditional, almost safari look that you really are going out in the wild with this vehicle. Of course, you have, because of it, a more squarish look, you have slightly more interior space. At least you're able to get 3 rows in, although what surprised me was that on the rear seat is actually more comfortable in the smaller EcoSport than in this car, because of course they're trying to add 3 seats on it. So I think it's really 2 different ways of interpreting what an SUV is, and I guess it really depends on, you know, first of all, what your personal preference is in terms of, do you like more the big sort of traditional SUV look, or do you want more of the sporty, sleek, aerodynamic look? And that's really up to the consumer what they like better.
Now let's get on to the CLA sedan, which for some time now I have been saying, sticking my neck out in fact and saying, is possibly the best looking Mercedes-Benz on the road today in the current portfolio. Now Bala spent some time with the car in Goa. The Audi A3 gets some competition in our market now. Let's take a look at all the details.
It looks stunning, and in red it is guaranteed to turn heads. Say hello to the gorgeous new Mercedes-Benz CLA class.
Now you can call this an A-Class with a boot or the smaller version of the CLS, but the CLA won't mind that tag because both of them are very, very attractive cars, but the CLA still manages to hold its own with its attractive design as a sedan. But from the front, there's a lot of reminiscence of the A-Class, especially the grille in front, the front bumper. You've got these bi-xenon headlamps with the daytime running lights. But from the side, it looks very, very attractive with these 3 lines, giving it a lot more muscular appeal, really. You've got the sloping roof line, although you know the rear passenger is going to feel a little cramped, at least from the outside. It looks very, very cramped on the inside. But overall, the aerodynamic shape really means that there could be lots of reduced drag and making the CLA a lot more fun car to drive with the reduced drag.
Even the attractive Audi A3 doesn't seem to have that flair that the CLA offers in its design. Even the rear doesn't look too stubby with the swooping all-LED tail lamps. The 17-inch alloys also add to the sporty character. The car's wheelbase is slightly longer than the A3's too at 2,699 mm.
Now, when Mercedes-Benz decided to offer the CLA in one petrol, the CLA 200, as well as one diesel, the CLA 200 CDI, I was frankly quite disappointed given that they have fairly more powerful engines in their global portfolio of the CLA. But the diesel engine that we're driving right now doesn't disappoint, to be honest, because it's quite peppy. There's lots of torque, and it feels fairly refined. Isn't too noisy at all, even if you rev it up at high speeds.
The 2.1-litre turbocharged diesel churns out 134 bhp and 300 Nm of torque with the familiar 7-speed dual-clutch gearbox, while the 2-litre petrol engine is peppy at 181 bhp and 300 Nm of torque. The engine lineup is the same as what you get on the recently launched GLA, which shares the same platform. The petrol is the car if you want a sporty performance, while the diesel is good for cruising. In fact, while there is a hint of turbo lag on the diesel, on a highway it really opens up and it cruises with great ease. And you do get the 3 driving modes, economy, sport and manual, with paddle shift adding to the fun. The front-wheel drive CLA handles fairly well and it manages to hold its line around corners. The steering isn't the most responsive though, and it feels a bit heavy, which lets down what is otherwise a taut setup.
Now, one of the reasons that has put a big smile on my face while driving the CLA is the suspension. The ride quality is very, very impressive. The suspension is really, really nice, because you do expect that, given the sporty character, that you would have a little bit of a stiff suspension, but that's not the case on the CLA at all. Even while going over speed breakers like this one, or even on large potholes, the suspension really takes it in very well without crashing in. And that will please a lot of buyers in the Indian market.
Get inside the CLA and the cabin is all too familiar, so you definitely know that it's related to the A and GLA class. Jet propeller air vents, sporty twin tube dials in the instruments, and while the plastics used inside the cabin are pretty good, they're not quite top drawer as is expected from Mercedes-Benz, especially this rather hard plastic used around the dash. The Command infotainment system is the latest iteration, which is good with a better interface like on the C-Class, navigation, a panoramic sunroof, sporty race-style seats and frameless doors round off what is a fairly stylish cabin overall.
Now, as expected, the rear seats of the CLA does feel quite cramped. The sloping roofline doesn't really help matters. I'm about 5'9", and as you can see, there's very, very little headroom. And what makes things worse is the smaller window that really doesn't make things better, because you do feel a little claustrophobic.
And that is where the A3 does score. The boot though is quite generous at 470 litres, but do factor in the spare wheel. The rear seats do split fold 60-40, giving you some extra cargo space.
Now, Mercedes-Benz says that ever since the CLA was launched globally in April 2013, it has so far sold over 100,000 units, especially in Europe and in the US. Here's the interesting bit: 80% of the customers in the US were new to the Mercedes-Benz family, first-time customers, and that's the kind of success that they hope to replicate with the CLA here in India, which is why this is expected to be a volume driver. And you see that decision of assembling this car here in India. Now, initially though, at the time of launch, it will be imported as a CBU, but later down the line, as soon as the expanded plant comes up, this will be assembled here at the Pune facility.
So yeah, all eyes will now be on the CLA and indeed this segment when it launches later this month. Expect Mercedes-Benz to stay pretty aggressive with the pricing, which we think should start around 28 lakh rupees. So a fun start to the year as the German 3 begin a new battle for pole position this year in the Indian market.
The maturity of the awards grow remarkably, almost in parallel with the maturity of the industry in India. The selection process itself has evolved. We have been careful to improve quantification of the selection process, an expansion of the jury to bring in the right kinds of perspectives. So you bring people from a consumer perspective, bring people in from a design perspective, you bring people from a media and an industry perspective. So there is a much wider range of perspectives being brought to bear to the selection.
So that's it on the program today. I hope you enjoyed it. We've certainly enjoyed bringing it to you. Next week, we'll have something more exciting for you. Remember, it's also time for our awards. It's coming close now. You still have a chance to win yourself your favorite car or bike. Go ahead and vote for our Viewers' Choice category. Please wear your helmets. Please wear your seat belts. Make that your New Year resolution if you have to. I'll see you next week.